The year is 1984, and this is one of the strangest stories in American automotive history. Honestly, Pontiac deserves both credit and blame for pulling off one of the most elaborate corporate deceptions ever attempted inside General Motors. This is the 1984 Pontiac Fiero you're looking at here, America's first mass-produced mid-engine sports car. And the most surprising part is that it was never supposed to exist. To understand why, we need to step back and look at the environment it was born into. By the early 1980s, General Motors was under intense pressure. Japanese manufacturers were flooding the market with fuel-efficient, reliable cars. The muscle car era was long gone. Emissions regulations were tightening every year, and fuel economy had become a top priority. Inside GM, executives had reached a clear conclusion. Sports cars were risky. They didn't generate consistent profits, and even the Corvette survived largely on prestige rather than volume. As a result, GM effectively issued a company-wide ban on new sports car development. The logic seemed reasonable at the time. GM wanted practical, efficient transportation, nothing more. But one engineer refused to accept that reality. His name was Hulki Aldakakti, a Turkish-born engineer who had spent years dreaming of an American mid-engine sports car. He knew that if he pitched such a car honestly, the project would be killed immediately. So he devised a plan. Instead of proposing a sports car, Aldakakti pitched a two-seat commuter vehicle, a fuel-efficient car for Americans who drove alone to work every day. The sporty styling was framed as a way to attract younger buyers. The mid-engine layout was justified for fuel economy and crash safety, and the fact that it looked like an Italian exotic was treated as pure coincidence. The pitch worked. In 1978, GM approved the project, but only as a commuter car. Budgets were tight, development time was limited, and performance was explicitly not a priority. What you're seeing here is the result of that deception, and from this point forward, the story only gets stranger. To understand just how risky this plan was, you have to appreciate the balancing act Aldakakti and his team were attempting. They needed to build the commuter car GM wanted on paper while quietly engineering the foundation of a real sports car underneath. Every design decision had to serve two purposes. Officially, the pitch focused on fuel economy. The Fiero would achieve over 30 miles per gallon. It would be lightweight, practical for daily commuting. And the mid-engine layout would improve crash safety by moving the engine away from the passenger compartment. All of that was technically true, but it completely missed the real goal. What Aldakakti wanted was proof that America could build a mid-engine sports car capable of competing with Europe. He wanted to show that GM could innovate beyond big V8 engines and body-on-frame construction. So for 5 years, from 1978 through 1983, the team worked carefully and quietly. They designed a space frame chassis capable of handling serious performance, engineered suspension mounting points that could support future upgrades, and even allowed room for more powerful engines that officially did not exist yet, all while maintaining the appearance of a simple commuter car program. By 1983, they had succeeded. The Fiero prototype satisfied GM's public requirements while quietly preserving everything Aldakakti wanted privately. 31 miles per gallon fuel economy, a revolutionary space frame chassis with plastic body panels for rust resistance, and a mid-engine layout with near-perfect weight distribution. Hidden beneath all of that was the foundation for real performance that would come later. But this is where the story takes its first dark turn, because GM executives grew suspicious. They feared Pontiac was secretly building a Corvette competitor, and in response they imposed strict limitations. The most damaging decision of all was the engine choice, and that single decision nearly destroyed the Fiero before it ever had a chance to succeed. From a design perspective, the Fiero is fascinating because even though it was officially marketed as a commuter car, the styling tells a completely different story. The proportions immediately stand out, with short overhangs, a wedge-shaped profile, pop-up headlights that define the 1980s, and a pronounced bulge behind the cabin that clearly signals a mid-engine layout. This does not look like a car designed for commuting to the office. From a distance, it looks more like a Ferrari or a Lotus. The body panels are another key detail. They are not metal but plastic, specifically a composite material GM called Enduraflex, mounted to a steel space frame underneath. This was genuinely advanced for 1984 and brought real benefits, including rust resistance, improved durability in minor impacts, and greater flexibility in styling. Dimensionally, the Fiero was compact, with a 93.4-inch wheelbase and an overall length of 160.7 inches, yet its nearly 69-inch width gave it stability and presence. Design work was led by George Millidrag under the direction of Jerry Palmer, and the result is a car that still looks good today, with a wedge-shaped silhouette that has aged remarkably well. The compromise came under the skin, however. Because the Fiero had been approved as a fuel-efficient commuter, GM mandated the cheapest engine available, the 2.5-liter Iron Duke four-cylinder, borrowed from economy cars like the Chevrolet Citation. Output was just 92 horsepower, a figure that felt disappointing even in 1984. For comparison, the Toyota MR2 launched the same year with 112 horsepower, while even a Honda Civic offered 76 horsepower. 0 to 60 took roughly 16 seconds, and the quarter mile arrived in about 19 seconds. Automotive journalists noticed immediately. The Fiero looked fast, but it absolutely was not. And that contradiction defined the 1984 model year. Walking around the 1984 Fiero shows just how carefully the illusion was crafted. Up front, the pop-up headlights define the car's character, creating a smooth, aerodynamic nose when closed and an aggressive, alert look when raised. The base model front fascia is simple and clean, while later GT versions would add more visual aggression. Along the side, the mid-engine layout becomes obvious through the short front overhang, forward-positioned cabin, and pronounced rear section, all of which communicate performance, even if the reality did not fully match. Flush-mounted door handles reduce drag, and the car slips through the air efficiently, achieving a drag coefficient of approximately 0.33, which was excellent for its time. The base model rides on 14-inch steel wheels with plastic covers, functional but uninspiring, while later GT models would significantly improve the visual appeal. At the rear, wraparound taillights add width. The hatchback design provides limited but usable cargo space, and even the four-cylinder model receives dual exhaust tips, largely for appearance. Overall, the exterior design accomplishes exactly what Aldecaldo intended. It looks like a sports car, it draws attention, and it makes people want to drive it, even if the performance doesn't fully deliver on the promise. Walking around the 1984 Fiero shows just how carefully the illusion was crafted. Up front, the pop-up headlights define the car's character, creating a smooth, aerodynamic nose when closed, and an aggressive, alert look when raised. The base model front fascia is simple and clean, while later GT versions would add more visual aggression. Along the side, the mid-engine layout becomes obvious through the short front overhang, forward-positioned cabin, and pronounced rear section, all of which communicate performance even if the reality did not fully match. Flush-mounted door handles reduce drag, and the car slips through the air efficiently, achieving a drag coefficient of approximately 0.33, which was excellent for its time. The base model rides on 14-inch steel wheels with plastic covers, functional but uninspiring, while later GT models would significantly improve the visual appeal. At the rear, wraparound taillights add width. The hatchback design provides limited but usable cargo space, and even the four-cylinder model receives dual exhaust tips, largely for appearance. Overall, the exterior design accomplishes exactly what Aldecaldo intended. It looks like a sports car, it draws attention, and it makes people want to drive it, even if the performance doesn't fully deliver on the promise. Inside the Fiero, the sports car illusion continues. You sit very low, almost on the floor, and the wide door sills created by the space frame construction require a deliberate step in, reinforcing the sense that this is something different from a typical commuter car. Once seated, the interior feels surprisingly roomy for such a small vehicle, with adequate headroom, respectable shoulder room, and cloth bucket seats that are comfortable enough for daily driving even if they lack modern support. The dashboard is sharply angular, pure 1980s GM design, with a large, easy-to-read instrument cluster featuring a speedometer, tachometer, and supporting gauges. A three-spoke steering wheel with the Pontiac logo feels appropriately sized, though it lacks adjustability in base form. A high, wide center console separates driver and passenger, placing climate controls, radio, and switches within easy reach, even if some materials feel inexpensive. The four-speed manual shifter sits prominently in the center, offering serviceable but not particularly crisp shifts. Visibility is excellent thanks to large side windows and the rear hatch, with minimal blind spots, though the fixed rear quarter windows disappointed some owners. Overall, the interior is functional, driver-focused, and honest about its affordable positioning. Opening the rear hatch reveals the Fiero's greatest weakness: the 2.5-liter Iron Duke four-cylinder engine. Reliable and durable, it was nevertheless completely underwhelming, producing just 92 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque. Even in 1984, those figures were unimpressive. Throttle body fuel injection kept things simple, but power delivery was weak. The engine vibrated noticeably at idle, and it sounded coarse under load. This engine was never meant to power a sports car. Aldecaldo originally envisioned GM's rotary engine, which would have been lightweight, smooth, compact, and ideal for a mid-engine layout, but GM canceled the rotary program in 1974, forcing Pontiac to substitute the Iron Duke. That change altered everything, increasing weight, shifting balance forward, and significantly hurting performance. Pontiac knew this setup was temporary, as a 2.8-liter V6 producing 140 horsepower was already in development for 1985, but it wasn't ready in time. As a result, first-year Fieros suffered an identity crisis, pairing exotic looks with economy car performance. Buyers noticed, journalists noticed, and, unfortunately, worse problems were still ahead. The 1984 Fiero became infamous for one reason: fire. Not isolated incidents, but hundreds of them. Quality control issues affected the Iron Duke's connecting rods, and under sustained high-speed driving, some rods fractured. When they failed, they punched through the engine block, spraying hot oil onto the exhaust manifold where it ignited. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration documented 260 fires in 1984 Fieros alone. Some occurred while driving, others after the car was parked. General Motors initially downplayed the issue, blaming owners and maintenance habits, but internal documents later revealed engineers had warned management and recommended fixes that were rejected due to cost concerns. In December of 1984, GM issued a recall, adding exhaust modifications and improved cooling, but largely leaving the connecting rods untouched. The damage was done. Sales collapsed, insurance premiums rose, and some insurers refused coverage entirely. Although later Fieros were significantly improved, the stigma never faded. The irony is unavoidable. A car born from deception was nearly destroyed by cost-cutting. By 1988, the Fiero finally became what it should have been, with better suspension, more power, and real performance, only to be cancelled just as it reached maturity. Today, the Fiero is remembered with a mix of frustration and admiration. Clean examples, especially 1988 GTs, are increasingly collectible, and enthusiasts continue to unlock the potential Aldecalti built into the platform decades ago. So, what do you think? Was the Pontiac Fiero a brilliant idea executed poorly, or was it doomed from the start by corporate politics? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy stories like this, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.